Hi there, it's Nicole for Lawn Fawn, and today I have a card featuring the new Tobaggan Together stamp set and coordinating dies, and I've paired them with some other Lawn Fawn dies to create this snowy holiday scene. To start, I am going to die cut some smooth white cardstock with the new Snowy Backdrops die. This is an A2 sized die, and it's got all of these great little stars and circles cutouts, and it's going to be a great layering piece to build up my snowy background. I'm going to die cut some vellum using the A2 sized large stitched rectangle die. This is going to be layered over that snowy backdrops and kind of help mute it a little bit and just give it that illusion of falling snow in the background. I'm going to need a couple of more borders to place on top. I'm going to use that stitched rectangle die again and just die cut some scraps of white cardstock here. I'm going to die cut this with the forest border die. Run that through. Now, after I got this die cut and layered it with my other two pieces, I decided that it was a little too tall and I needed to make it a little shorter. So instead of scrapping that whole piece, I'm simply going to take it again, line up that forest border die, and just cut off that top portion. Then I can check it with my background, and I like that a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and die cut another scrap here. If you had a full sheet, you could just die cut both borders from one rectangle, but I was using scraps of paper instead of going and getting another sheet. And then I'll take one of these stitched hillside borders and line that up. And underneath the light on my desk, I could kind of see that paper underneath, so it gave me a good guide for where I wanted to die cut this stitched hillside border. Go ahead and pop that out now. I'm going to take my vellum background and use the powder bag tool, and this is just going to help keep the embossing powder to stick exactly to where I stamp and not migrate anywhere else. I'm going to use greetings from the Tobaggan Together stamp set. I'm going to stamp those with Frost Versamark ink, and then add some gold embossing powder and heat set that. This is going to make the greeting really pop. Because there's so much white at the top of this finished card, I want to make sure that the greeting is very legible and easy to read. It's going to say Merry Christmas to a dear friend. I love the little play on words here. I'm going to set that aside for a second and go ahead and start stamping the images I'm going to use to finish my scene. I'm going to use the reindeer, the little string so that it can attach him to the sled. And then the sled itself. My first stamped image didn't turn out very good, so I'll go ahead and stamp that one more time. Now, originally I thought I would add the little grouping of gifts to the sled for my card, but once I got to working on my coloring in these images, I decided I liked the little reindeer better, so I'm going to add that here in a second. I'm going to take the tree stamp from the Tobaggan Together stamp set and stamp that with the Lawn Fawn Noble Fur ink using first and second generation stamping, so I get a couple of different shades of trees. And then I'll start coloring in my images with Copic markers. The colors I'm using are shown in the upper left corner of the screen here. There's that other cute reindeer. I'll stamp him and the Santa hat. That's going to give a little pop of color by coloring in that Santa hat. I'm going to color both of these reindeer exactly the same. I chose a little bit, I kind of would call muted colors than what I normally do for browns, and I really like how they turned out. I like these colors, or the color these reindeer turned out with the colors of those trees and then the white of the card. Once I had it shaded and I thought maybe it was a little blended out a little too much, I like to go back in and add a little additional dark. I think that really helps add some nice shadowing. I'm going to use some lighter colors for the lighter areas on the reindeer. Blend that out a little. R20 for the cheek. Go ahead and do the same thing for the second reindeer. Get him all colored in. Adding a little E40 for those light areas, a little R20, and then blend it out with the E43. That'll darken up a little bit of those lighter areas. I'm going to go back in with my dark color. I can blend it back out again if I need to. And there are my cute critters. The penguins in this stamp set are adorable as well. I just love the critters in this stamp set. I'm going to use our 24, 46, and 39 for both the Santa hat and the sled, and then a little C1 and C00 for the white areas on the hat. Just very, very little, not a ton right there. And then I'll use the coordinating Tobaggan together dies to die cut all of these images. I'll pop all of these out, and then I'll go ahead and die cut the rest of the trees using that tree die. I want to have a whole tree border behind these reindeer on my card. So go ahead and die cut the rest of those. Before I put it together, I decided to take 3 of these snowflake shapes from the Tobaggan Together stamp set and stamp them on that vellum panel using Versamark ink and then sprinkling on white embossing powder this time. This is going to give the illusion of some snowflakes in the background with that snowy backdrops, and then on the foreground on top of this vellum. It just adds to the depth and dimension of the design. This is one of my favorite little tips for building a dimensional design is the use of vellum and placing some elements in front and some behind. So I'll just scatter these little snowflakes everywhere, sprinkle on the white embossing powder, and then tap it off. Heat emboss those once I have all of those in place. And then I can start putting everything together. Now, I'm going to attach the vellum background to the snowy backdrops background with a couple of adhesives. I will use a adhesive along the bottom edge because it's going to be hidden, so I don't have to worry about if that's going to show or not. And then I'm going to hide some adhesive with liquid adhesive behind any of the embossing elements on the top portion of this panel. It's just a great way to kind of hide the adhesive so that you don't see it sticking out, but you still have a nice secure bond and you don't have to worry about that panel popping up. I'm going to place something heavy. These acrylic blocks work great to hold that down until the glue dries. Next, I'll attach the forest border along the bottom edge, and I cut off just a little too much of this, so when I go to attach it, I am going to place it not quite at the bottom of this panel. I'm going to place it up a little bit. It's going to be hidden behind this stitched hillside border, so I don't have to worry that you'll see that part of it. And then before I place my trees, I'm going to just partially glue some of the elements together. It's going to give me a better idea of how they're going to fit together so that I make sure and get them centered before I start gluing them to my card. I don't want to glue them down and then realize that I'm going to run out of room on one side or another. So I glued the string to the one reindeer and then the sitting reindeer to the sled, and then I can kind of just sit those there for a second while I glue my trees and put them in place. With the trees, I want some of them to be back behind the stitched hillside border and some to be in front. This is going to help build the illusion of a forest or going through a snowy forest. So that lighter one's going to sit on top of the stitched hillside border and the green one sits behind. Go ahead and tuck another one over there. Place these last 3 Go ahead and get these two over on this side, and then I can place my final one kind of in the center there. And the green adds a nice pop of color to a card that is predominantly white. So now that I have my trees in place, I can go ahead and glue down the sled with the reindeer and the walking reindeer, and I'll have them perfectly centered. Pop that little Santa hat on this little guy. Go ahead and add my adhesive to my other image. Glue him down in place. Using my acrylic blocks to hold those down just to make sure that I get a nice secure bond. There's a cute little stamp that shows motion, so I'm going to stamp that behind the sled so it looks like the sled is moving through the snow. And then I'm going to take the black gel pen and add detail to the eyes and nose on both critters. And add a white gel pen to the dots on the standing reindeer. I'm going to take the C1 and C00 Copic markers and add some shadowing below the sled and then the reindeer. This is going to give the illusion of some movement and shadowing and make it look like they're not just plopped down there on the bottom of the card. It helps ground them a little bit. So I'll blend those out. And then take the Wink of Stella clear glitter brush marker and add glitter to the brim and the pom-pom on the hat to finish the card. Finally, I'll attach this to a top fold Simon Says stamp note card, and the design is all finished. Thanks for watching this video showcasing the Lawn Fawn Toboggan Together stamp set and coordinating dies. The supplies I've used are listed and linked below the video on YouTube. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.